University Liberal Arts and Sciences program, the Medical College of Wisconsin, and Loma Health Sciences Emergency Medicine Residency. He has served on Intermountain sports medicine team for local Cache Valley High Schools and Utah State University. He loves working with youth in many capacities, including coaching. He has seen a dramatic increase in anxiety and depression and wants to ameliorate this. He is married to his best friend, the former Jennifer Davis, and together they have 6 daughters. So everybody please give a warm welcome for Ryan.
Do you know, it's an honor to be with you all today, and I'm supposed to, I guess, stand in between these 3 chairs for the filming. So just keep me in between these 3 chairs. Thank you so much for coming. I know this is something that's probably near and dear to many of you. In all honesty, it was something that was really interesting in my career because I started at Logan Regional Hospital in 2002. So I was all done with training. I was a certified emergency physician, and I started in 2002. So what is that, 23 years ago? And the patients that I saw in the emergency department then, very, very few psychiatric patients. We would see an occasional alcoholic. We would see somebody that was suicidal occasionally. But we're like, you work about 13 shifts a month, and I would see maybe a handful of patients in the whole month. I see that every single shift now. Every single shift I am seeing crisis, suicide attempt, lots of different things. And the new alcoholic, and this is really what has been so shocking to me, the new alcoholic is not the middle-aged to older man. The new alcoholic is the 20-something and 30-something-year-old woman. That's who we see. We might see an occasional older male alcoholic, but a lot of women now are self-medicating because of anxiety with alcohol. And alcohol works on the same pathways that a lot of anti-anxiety medicines work. The problem is they're self-medicating, they have maybe a genetic tendency, and all of a sudden they have 2 problems. They have anxiety still, and they're an alcoholic. We have lost a handful of young women to liver failure. Died. Young moms. It's really, really sad, and it's been really disturbing. So the reason that I really started to become passionate about this is because from 2015 to 2019, so in a 5-year span, 400% increase in youth presenting to the ER in crisis. Anxiety, depression, suicide. 400%. Now, that is not even in the same planet anymore after the pandemic. I mean, it's not even the same. But what we're finding now is we're finding with the rise, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, but with the rise of cell phones and the information age and social media, right parallel with it has been anxiety and depression. It's like you can literally plot them. They go right along with each other. We'll talk about kind of why that is. But what's happening is there's now such a heightened sense of awareness that a lot of people are like taking their child that's anxious or sad, they're taking them to their primary doctor because they're anxious and sad, and their primary doctor, who's busy and doing a great job, a lot of times they can only offer a medication. So a lot of kids that don't necessarily meet the disorder category, which would qualify for medications, are getting put on SSRIs because they're not getting the real help they need, which is therapy and preventative therapy. So that's what I'm really passionate about, is trying to help people understand, you know, teenage life, it makes you sad and it makes you anxious. And that's, unfortunately, that's pretty normal. And so we're going to talk about some of the differences. So there are a lot of things that people can do with their teens. Maybe they are in the disorder, they're in an anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder, and there's a lot of things you can do and that they can do to really, really get better or to be stronger in that scenario. I am so grateful for J.C. Carroll. J.C. Carroll shared something. He was very vulnerable. It's interesting. We didn't know that he was going to share that. As a matter of fact, he wasn't planning on sharing it. We asked him to come and say, hey, he's in a real, he's under pressure as an athlete and all of those things. I knew his story because he was a real disciplined kid, growing up. I knew that. I knew he was working really hard to try to be good at his craft. And he never has shared that publicly, he told me. He's never shared that he had a major depressive episode for a year. He's never shared that publicly. So those of you that were here, that was pretty unique, and he felt really impressed that he needed to share that yesterday. So he put it in his presentation. So really, really grateful for J.C. Carroll and being vulnerable, because I think a lot of people need to hear that. So I have this on an iPad. We don't have a thing, so I'm going to have Rick do my thing. You can do the next slide, Rick. All right, so what's normal? Totally normal emotions for teens. Feeling impulsive, moody, getting nervous before a test or a game. I mean, adults do that, right? Feeling sad after a breakup or during stressful situations. Worrying about your looks or what others think. Now, I have 3 of my daughters back there. Raise your hands. So I have 6 daughters, no sons. I had 5 sisters. I grew up in the middle of them all. I know girls and women, I think, but I don't know girls or women because they don't know themselves. I mean, they change all that. It's kind of a joke because, I get that a lot. It's like, oh, you must really know, how to raise a girl or how to, relate with women. And I'm like, well, I think I do, but every time I do, I realize I don't. So these are really, really normal behaviors, and they're normal behaviors for all of us, right? What we're going to talk about is when is it a disorder? Because a lot of these behaviors, because of the pressure cooker of life right now, a lot of these behaviors are getting accentuated in our youth. They're becoming a lot more evident, and we'll talk about why. Next slide. Okay. So these are also some normal things with teens: feeling anxious before big things, having off days, questioning yourself, wanting alone time, being impulsive. I don't think I haven't had a daughter that went through the scenario like they just wanted to be in their room. No, they just want to be in their room for a while, every day, all the time, for like a year. They would still come out. We have a 14-year-old. So I have 6 girls, 30 to 14, 16 years apart. It was really cool. The oldest one was there for the birth of our baby, and the baby's actually the tallest one of all of them. All the girls are about 5'3" to 5'4", and she's like 5'6", probably going to be 7 or 5'7" or 5'8". But it's just really interesting because they're all different. Like, I have 6 daughters. I feel like we've raised them the same, but they're all different. They all have different interests, and we really appreciate the variety. And they all went through different things at different times. Some of them had anxiety episodes for a while. Some of them had depressive episodes. Some of them had eating disorder scenarios. It's been a real variety, and some of them are very interested in debate. Some of them are very interested in cheer. Some of them are very interested. So this variety is really interesting. It's really great. It makes the family dynamics wonderful, but it's also, I think, taught me a lot, and it made me more sensitive when I'm helping like a young person coming into the ER because their life is imploding. So next slide. All right. So, and I don't know if you see, these are the colors of pause, by the way. We have intentionally chosen these colors. Green for life, plant growth, living, and water. You know, these main elements for life. So, anxiety disorder, intense worry most of the time throughout the day for weeks. For weeks. Now, you'll see this in 2 hours of a teenage girl's life, right? That can happen periodically, but this is when it's an anxiety disorder. It's going for weeks, and it doesn't go away even when things seem to be okay in their life, and it interferes with sleep, eating, and their social life. So you start seeing changes in what they normally do, and it's prevalent. It's staying that way. Now, a lot of teens are coming into the ER, and they have good grades, they have good friends, and they're hanging out with their friends, but they had a crisis scenario, and they imploded, and they're coming in, and their parents are scared, and they're scared because they did maybe something impulsive. And so what we try to do is help them realize, hey, you know, we got this. We can get this. We can work together with this. You're going to be okay. And, you know, and some of them are the chronic ones, the ones that this is their reality, and they're coming in frequently because of a lot of different things. So there's a huge spectrum of different patients that we're seeing in the emergency department. Depression is the feeling of hopelessness for almost, every day, for weeks as well. They're losing an interest in the things they enjoy. The word is anhedonia. They just stop doing things that they love. They don't participate in things that they usually enjoy. They don't hang out with their friends that they used to hang out with. When that is becoming prevalent, that is the time where you really start to have to be cautious. They're tired, sleeping a lot. Some people don't sleep. Low self-esteem, and pretty dark thoughts. Now, these things can actually be in tandem. You can fluctuate, be depressive for a while, and anxiety and depression can work together a lot. So don't be surprised if that's the case. And a lot of these SSRI medications can actually address and help on both sides. Some are a lot better for one, others are a lot better for the other. So it just really depends. All right, some real stats that I think are pretty concerning. So in 2009, about a quarter of all teens felt this, sad, depressed. So a quarter. Well, look at what that did in 2019 and then in 2021. Shot way up. If you look at, cell phones started to become really common about 2008, 2009, I guess the smartphones did. If you look at when social media started to become very popular on these smartphones, it totally parallels the rise of anxiety and depression. Totally parallels. Now, I'm not saying, these smartphones are just absolutely phenomenal, and you do so many wonderful things with them. When I was in high school in the 1980s, I had to go to the library to study and to do research. You don't have to go anywhere now. I mean, you can have ChatGPT do anything for you, tell you anything now. But, it's just crazy. So they are presented with all of this information. And you and I both know that a lot of this information is not always correct. I have a lot of people come into the ER with ChatGPT now and Google, and they're telling me, I'm worried about this. And I'm like, well, that's a good thought, but you don't have this and this and this. And they're like, oh. So a lot of people are getting kind of misled in a lot of different ways because there's no controls on what information is out there. This creates a lot of uncertainty for people, and it creates a lot of problems. So anxiety disorders in teens have nearly doubled. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death, and I believe the first cause is accidents. So that's the first cause of death in teens. So Suicide is number 2 now. It's just tragic. It's horrible. And we see some of these really just kids, and you're just like, you look like you have so much going for you. What is going on? Well, let's talk about that. Next slide. So obviously there's social media. Social media can do really, really good things. Really good things. But social media has created the greatest levels of isolation that have ever been recorded to humankind. We are so connected now, and we are so isolated because it's a pseudo connection, and it's presenting to them and to you and me lives that don't necessarily always exist. What's always being presented. So like now young women, you know, now young women see how they're supposed to look 24/7. And you have all these fitness bloggers and all these different people that are presenting, hey, I've got my life so in order and da-da-da-da-da. And so it's just creating a lot of pressure and stress for people. And it's also creating a lot of problems just with self-esteem, et cetera. So there are academic pressures. There were when I was young, but it's a little bit different now because it's now being broadcast everywhere. There is so much humble bragging going on with parents, you know, and we call it, some people call it humble brag, and it's a good thing, right? Because they're usually sharing it with their families, you know, because that's how they communicate with like their brothers and sisters that live across the country. But they're humble bragging, and that creates a lot of like stress for other people because, well, what's wrong with me? You know, what am I doing wrong, etc. And then there's extracurriculars. When I was young, football was in the fall. Basketball was in the winter. Baseball and track were in the in the spring. It is nonstop. And then you have a lot of club sports and a lot of dance companies that are producing amazing, amazing results because they're getting paid really well to do it. But they're now competing for your kids' times. And what's happening? Moms and dads are going 2 different directions every night, taking kids to different things all night long. It never existed before in society. And it's created so much stress. And the biggest sacrifice has been dinner together. Like families don't hardly sit and eat together, which you look at the data behind that, it is absolutely amazing how healthy it makes a human being if you eat dinner together with people. Just dinner, a single parent with her kids, or 2 parents with their kids. It's so amazingly stabilizing for people to be able to share, break bread together, talk. Now, obviously you want to make it a good environment because I know, you know, sometimes, and my daughters can probably attest, you know, we would get after them during dinner and make it maybe a miserable experience. Why did you blow that test? You know, kind of stuff like that. We've tried to learn that, you know, dinner really should be a safe place to just connect and share. We do something, and the girls always kind of bring it up. What was the good part of your day? What was the bad part of your day? You know, I think they call them the rose and the thorn now. Is that what you guys call it, like the rose and the thorn? But it's just really interesting. That's been sacrificed, and a lot of it's because of club sports and dance and all of these different things. I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm just saying create a time and a space to do that. It's huge. When I was growing up, Walter Cronkite was still alive. And at dinner time, the evening news might be on, or mom and dad watched it, and you would hear about events in the world. You'd hear about what was going on in Russia, what was going on in Europe. Our youth are being exposed to it all day long. They're getting told about corruption, about death. They're seeing death. Gaza, they're seeing it all. I mean, they're just seeing it all, and it creates so much uncertainty for them and fear and worry. And we never had that when I was younger. That was never part of my existence. Now they're seeing pictures of it. Whereas before you would hardly ever see those pictures on the news. It's created a lot of uncertainty. And the biggest thing that's happened for this rising generation, they don't trust institutions. They don't trust them because they learn over and over again corruption in institutions. So as a result, in 1940, 90% of people plus believed there was a God. In 1970, it was 80%. It's now under 50%, according to Pew Research, because of all of this uncertainty and hearing all of these horrible things. I think we talked about the other ones. Oh, here's another one. A lot of youth are sleeping with phones, and they are talking and communicating all night long. So they're not going through their sleep cycles like they're supposed to, which are so restorative. It's removing the toxins of the day from their brain metabolism, resetting, engaging and setting memories, learning from the things of the day and recording it in the brain. That's not able to happen with this. And so kids are going to school sleep deprived, and a lot of people are going about their lives sleep deprived, and it accentuates everything else. Okay, next slide. All right, so here's some more red flags. Feeling sad or anxious every day for greater than 2 weeks, pulling away from friends and families, big sleep or appetite changes, losing interest in stuff once enjoyed, and you can see that in their grades. Their grades start dropping. They don't want to participate anymore in activities, trouble focusing, and they start thinking about self-harm. So a lot of the things like cutting has been promoted on social media because it's a way for somebody to refocus their hurt and pain onto something physical. And a lot of parents come in and they're really, really stressed about this. It's a little bit different, though, than somebody who's fully tried a suicide attempt, because cutting is frequently more kind of a way that they're trying to manage their symptoms. And it's really, really sad because it was promoted to kind of and encouraged, I think. And some people feel like that's what you're supposed to do. So a lot of really sad kind of feelings about that. I get really frustrated that that's even something that you're supposed to promote. But a lot of youth, they learn it from each other. They've learned it from the social media. Next slide. So what can you do? I think the presentation just before was excellent. You got to talk about it. And you got to spend most of your time listening. And I feel bad for my kids because there's no manual on how to be a parent. And you continually relearn over and over again that you're not really the greatest parent in the world. Because kids are so different. And I need to spend more time, and they can attest, I think they were smiling about it. I do a lot of talking when we're talking. I need to listen more. But we just need to listen and be empathetic with our listening. And it's just huge. We need to move. People that are sedentary, it accentuates depression and anxiety. People that get out and move. This goes for people as they're aging too. The more you move, the longer you're going to live, the better you're going to feel, the less dementia you're going to develop, especially if you incorporate social connection. Families that embrace their moms and dads and have them part of that family. The Latin community does that culturally a lot. The Polynesian do. Those parents live longer, they live better, and they have less dementia rates. So sociality, we are humans, we are supposed to connect with each other. We're healthier when we do that. Sleeping is one of the things that is like the biggest problem right now. We need to promote sleep. So our kids never supposed to have their phones in their rooms when they're growing up. There's a lot of data that coming out. I just want to share this. A baby to toddler should never have an electronic device, ever. Ever, not even watching movies. And they're saying because that is such a critical time at them connecting to other human beings and being able to read other human beings. They have to see facial expressions. They have to listen to tonation in your voice. They have to do that because that is how they connect with other human beings. And that is the basis for the rest of their life. Trying to learn it later is a lot harder. It doesn't happen. And there is a group in sociologists that are starting to say, why are we seeing the rise of the autistic spectrum? Is because of this. It's because of this. We have to have babies. I'll be driving to work, and I never used to see this. Moms will be out there pushing their stroller. They have their baby in their stroller. It's a beautiful day, and they're on their phone the whole time, walking with their babies, because they're trying to stay connected. Pseudo-connection, remember? They're trying to stay connected. And what they're supposed to be doing, and I please don't, because I did this stuff, okay? I did this stuff. What you're supposed to be doing is talking to your baby. Look at the horsey. Look at the flowers or something like that. They need to hear that. They need to feel it. They need to connect. They need to do all of that. It's critical. And then school-age kids should have very limited access to phones and social media, if never really have social media. They're saying don't let little grade school kids ever have social media until they're 16, and then they can have one. This is what kind of all the recommendations are coming, and it's controlled. But the amount of time that kids have on devices should be super controlled and regulated. And man, this gets really hard because, I didn't do this all the time, It's just get really hard, and a lot of parents are beating themselves up because they didn't know this stuff earlier. They just didn't know. Well, it's critical for the development, problem solving, interconnections, working together are so critical with these things. And if they have limited time on devices and stuff, and I'm really summarizing a lot of this, so you can find this information, but I'm really kind of summarizing it really shortly here, but just really good information to know. They should have very, very little cell phone usage up until like 14 to 16. Social media apps, 16 and on, you can start introducing them. So I talked about being unplugged, doing things that you enjoy. And I really liked it earlier, participating with your young ones in those things. They used to love go to movies with them. Go to the movies that they like. Participate in the things that they like to do. They like hiking, go hiking with them. But I thought it was excellent, the prior presentation on how you should be listening, how you should be engaging, how you should be participating in their life, and giving them a lot of grace and giving them a lot of, you were there once, right? You were there. And we get so short-sighted a lot when we age, thinking differently about our youth. I could get my parents up here if they were alive, and they could tell you a lot of things about me that I just don't remember anymore. So it's just being really, giving them grace and just really working with them together and listening. And then asking for help. You can't do that now. So hopefully you've seen like this difference in what is like just kind of normal and even more heightened now because of the world that we live in and what a disorder is and when stuff is necessary. So next slide. All right, so wellness is really, really critical because these things are frequently sacrificed as we're living our lives. Sleep, so very important, and it's sacrificed all the time. Adults, you should be getting, on average, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And most of you probably aren't doing that. And it's equally as bad if you're getting too much sleep. There's a lot of health problems that develop if you're sleeping too much. So it's about the 8-hour range. And some people can sleep less and do really, really well. And other people need maybe more 8.5, 9. But you've got to find this spot because it's somewhere in there. Exercise, just walking every day has huge benefits for people. So if you're not a real exerciser, a weightlifter, or a runner or whatever, just going on a walk, especially with somebody you care about, going on a walk and getting a good mile in or 2 miles, huge benefits, very huge for later on in your life as you're aging, very huge. The best exercise that you could do, they say, is a lunge. Like if you could only do one exercise, a lunge. Why? Because we atrophy so much. Guys lose their butts completely. You know, we just lose so much muscle down here. Guess what you start doing when you get older? You fall. And guess what that does? You break hips because your bones are, like you're losing density in your bones. You hit your head, you break your spine. There's just ribs. I see these things all the time. So if you're out moving and incorporate some type of a weightlifting regimen, and you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to do a lot. 30 minutes twice a week, just putting a little weight on your body, you know, it really, really is helpful. And then a little bit of cardio, whether it's walking or there's just a lot you can do, and it does not take that much time. Spirituality and a religious tradition, huge. So there's a lot of shows that talk about, you know, how do you have a long, full, healthy life? You see them on Netflix and stuff. You're going to see all of these. They eat the Mediterranean diet. People that live the Mediterranean diet live a lot longer and have a lot less dementia. They usually have a religion or a spirituality. If they're not a believer in, they're more kind of nature prone for their divinity or whatever. They're into yoga. They have a purpose. They have a hope from it. And then social connection, we talked about that a little bit. And then lifelong learning is huge. People, when they get into their senior years, if they're learning a new instrument, if they're engaging, like working at Walmart and being a greeter, I mean, those things are huge for people's minds and brains, and the atrophying process significantly declines. All right, so when do you do therapy versus medication? So the first thing that you should always think and should do is think therapy. All of the data and the science says therapy by far is the best. By far, no questions. And we're not just saying this because we're Pause Wellness and we have therapists. By far, therapy, number one. If you leave here and there's one thing that you remember, therapy. Yeah.
No, it's not like that. You always said that we have to get therapy.
Have to get a therapist.
It's all their baseline research.
Yep.
But it's not like medication will wrong, hopefully it will start.
Right. Yes. So a lot of people, because this cycle gets kind of a little beat up in this day and age. You notice your son or daughter is really struggling because of what we talked about already. You take them to your family practice doctor. Family practice doctor says, hey, let's start them on like fluoxetine and see how that helps them. Well, a lot of them will get much better, much faster with lifestyle changes, wellness, kind of following wellness, but learning the skills and the knowledge about their minds and their brains and things that they can actually help themselves and there's amazing things. There's brain spotting. There's, is it by the music where you hear it in both ears? Yeah, bilateral stimulation. Like, there are things that you can do right now that significantly help, and they're not expensive. You know, you just have to learn what these things are. And now all of a sudden you're able to deal with the emotions and the anxiety and the depression with a technique. Now, this takes time. You can't do this fast. So you have to invest in learning from somebody who's trained in this, that they can help you with it. Going 2 sessions is not going to be enough. We're talking months. Usually people, like if somebody's not really in a disorder category, you know, a couple of months, they learn a lot of stuff and they can really be ready and go out. But some people need longer. And then people with, you know, a disorder, an anxiety or depressive disorder, they need much longer. And they pull out of it. I've seen time and time again, young people never take a medication, do therapy, and they are set. And that doesn't mean that they don't still have the tendency to go back, but they are much, much better. Never had a medication. Now, I'm a physician. I'm an MD. I prescribe medications. So I hope you understand that I'm not promoting medication. Medications have a purpose. They're to bridge you if needed. So as a bridge, so you're in a difficult scenario, therapy's being done, but they are really, really low, and they're really struggling. You start a medication. The SSRIs are going to take weeks to really start getting into effect, at least 2 weeks, more like 3 to 4. And there's adjustments that go on that need to happen, but it's a bridge. A lot of people can take these medications, learn their skills from their therapists, learn the knowledge that's necessary, and then get off the medications eventually. And you don't ever stop them like that. You gradually wean off of them because it took time to gradually wean on them. So you get off of them slowly because some people get sick if you stop them suddenly. You get off them slowly. Now, some people, because of genetic situations, they need to be on medications for a long time. And that's okay. That's okay. But some people just need a bridge. Supplements. Now, supplements are tricky because supplements, there's no control for supplements. The vitamin industry can do whatever it wants, and there's not a Food and Drug Administration saying. So the vitamin industry can do a lot of good, but it also wants to make money, so it encourages people to take supplements, right? Because if they take supplements, they make money. And there's not a lot of science in it. If you look at the science and the data, and you have to be very, very careful about it, because if it's produced by a biased source, their results are going to be supporting what they want you to believe. So the Center for Disease Control last year came out and basically said the majority of Americans do not need to take any type of vitamin or supplement, period, as long as they're eating a normal diet. And the only supplements that show any scientific evidence for benefit are, you guys know what they are? Huh? Vitamin D. Vitamin D is one of them, especially for Utah, right? The northern hemisphere people that we have winters. Vitamin D is one. It's a big one. Not even vitamin A, because you can get it in diet. Iron, period. Yeah, if you have a medical condition that requires iron, yep. Folic acid, especially for pregnancy. It's huge in the development of the spinal cord and the nerves. So it's vitamin or D3. It's iron. What did we just talk about? Folate. Yeah, but especially, calcium, especially for seniors, and The B12, yes. B12, yes, because there's deficiencies in B12 and it causes anemia. It's basically only those vitamins. That's according to the science and the data. Everything else, that doesn't mean you can't take a supplement or you shouldn't have to take a supplement. That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to take them every day, right? You can take them once or twice a week. But if you're eating a normal diet, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Now, there's a lot of evidence and data that's still building, but currently, that's what the recommendation is. Okay? Now, there are some health conditions that you would need other things. So I just want to be very clear about that. But that's what the CDC just let out this last year. Okay, next slide. I think we're almost done here, and then we can open up for questions. So, we talked about this a lot. The Pause Wellness was a divinely directed, established entity. It's a true nonprofit, and it's based on these types of things. Next slide. Okay, so final thoughts. You matter. Your kids matter. It's really, really important that they know and feel that. You're not weak for feeling overwhelmed. Once again, I want to really appreciate J.C. Carroll, what he did. I've had a similar experience in my life. Never, ever, ever have had depression or anxiety in my life, ever. And life is good and wonderful, and then all of a sudden developed anxiety that I'd never, ever had. It was just bizarre how it happened. And there's a lot of things that triggered it, and I don't have the time to talk about it, but I have a completely different perspective on this. You're not weak for being overwhelmed. It's a very common thing. Most families have this. And being vulnerable and sharing is a really, really good thing because it helps those other families believe that they should have hope. Asking for help equals strength. Mental health is real and it's treatable, and you are not alone. It's possible that you may only need to create a sustainable lifestyle to prevent this from developing in your life. But even if you're doing those things, it's still possible that those things can happen in your life. But it really, really helps in the process of having depression or anxiety to have these good lifestyle things, as well as sometimes you're going to need medication. And frequently, therapy is going to prevent a lot of things getting worse and learning what you need to learn, et cetera. So I think that's the last one. Any questions? I hope this has been helpful, but does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Is nutrition like ensure that the so sure the immune system is more about nutrition when it dies?
Yes. Did you guys hear this? Is nutrition playing a big part today in what youth are experiencing with anxiety? 100%. Did you ever have energy drinks when you were younger? They're 200 milligrams of caffeine now. So it's doing this kind of stuff. And in the United States, we do have a lot of additives and preservatives that other countries don't have. And the U.S. is now starting to clean this up quite a bit. They're doing a lot better. But you can go to Europe, and they don't have a lot of the stuff in their food that we do. Yes, it does come into play. And the other thing is if you're just eating really basic macronutrients, appropriate amounts of meat, dairy, and we don't even have to get into the there's so many things that have developed because of the U.S. manufacturing, like celiac disease and all of these just different kind of things. But as long as you're eating good basic stuff, doesn't mean that I think you can still have cake, you can still have cookie, you can still do those things. But if you're eating a good amount of protein each day, you're not going to be doing this. And a lot of people are just carbo loading, and then they're dropping, and their glucose levels are just doing kind of all over the place. So yes. Any other questions? Oh yeah, right here, and then Rachel, you next.
But we do as a society trying to break down the cultural norm about being spoken about mental health and wellness and encouragement and learning all.
That's what we're doing today. But yes, I think it's getting better. I really do. I want to be hopeful. There is so much more talking about this in churches and in community things. This is happening so much more now. So I think it's happening better and better, but I think it's going to take vulnerability. I think people are going to have to be willing to share and just start living by really solid, good principles. Last question. Am I supposed to be done? Yeah. Okay. Last question.
I want to know your thoughts in the conversation about and how it's affected kids' mental health.
It basically doubled everything. So when it was already climbing, like I think you saw on the one, it was like it went up to like almost 50%. It really isolated people and created a lot of problem. And one of the biggest problems is it created a lot of hostility, tons of hostility, which creates a lot more uncertainty.
He gave me the mic. Are you guys going to have like social events for teens just to get together and hang out, that type of thing to help?
If we can get
Connection?
the donations, we're going to have monthly events for adults and for teens, and where they can gather and learn. So a big educational movement where we're teaching, but they're with people that understand because they're having the same kind of scenarios in their life. So yes, that's definitely one of our plans at Pause Wellness. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all.